Okay, let's see. Let's go to the comments.
I got the guess and I ain't talking about no GI. Call me Western Block, fan man, no TI. Pull up to the joint, it's mad dry, and I see why. Everywhere I look, wasn't a person who could be I. Principal investigator, top of the line.
All right, I'm in the chat. Welcome to the STEMbassy.
Throw it in a circle like a particle accelerator. Make your heart stop, low negative defibrillator. Hey, boss girl, that PI, the PI, I'm the HDIC. See me in the lab with the drip flow DI. Girls taking over and it ain't no PI. Hey, boss girl, that PI, the PI, I'm the HDIC. See me in the lab with the drip flow DI. Girls taking over and it ain't no PI. I'ma set it off, I'm the bomb and the detonator. Haters couldn't do the math, had to get it calculator. I'm up in the hood, got some cells in the incubator. Global impact, science nigga, I can make it crater. Pop cause I'm popping and I'm corny, that's a blow. I'm trying to run the system, I don't cheat, I got the code. Gotta put my sisters on.
All right. Let's see who's in here. Let's go on Instagram and see. Get some people in here.
Strike a pulse as my toes say some adipose. Strike a pulse as my toes say some adipose.
All right. Well, that was fun. Okay, so welcome to the STEMbassy. Tonight we have some beautiful, wonderful guests today on March 8th. Today is International Women's Day. So we've got a lot of pride, a lot of excitement going on tonight because it's our day. We're ready to have some fun. So this is the STEMbassy. This is the place where STEM ambassadors come to meet, come to engage, talk about science, and have fun, okay? It's a space just for us, made for us, by us, and all are welcome. So my name is Raven. I go by Raven, the Science Maven on the internet, and I am a molecular scientist as well as an educator and also a science communicator. And I made the STEMbassy to have fun with my fellow science communicators and also talk to the general public about science and learn something from each other. So tonight we have three special guests. We have Malin, Sienna, and we also have Cami. And they're going to introduce themselves one by one. So I'm going to bring in Miss Cami. Hello, Cami. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming to the STEMbassy.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Of course. So I am a PhD student working on material science and engineering. In specific, I work on 3D printing using a custom-built 3D printer that I built over in my lab to print structures that we can create tissues in. So I try to mimic the cartilage and the bone environment so stem cells can turn into cartilage and bone tissue.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. That is fascinating work that you're doing, and I can't wait to talk more about it tonight. Okay, so we're gonna bring in Sienna. Hi, Sienna. How you doing?
Hi. I'm Sienna. I live in Hawaii. I'm an educator of various different sciences, from biology to forensics to robotics to network engineering. I started out on a pathway to just teach biology, and I ended up teaching everything. I basically help other teachers also transition into 3D learning, where students are learning the science engineering practices, as well as doing the science and also cross-cutting concepts, identifying patterns. I am in the dissertation phase of my doctorate in curriculum and instruction, and I think I'm going to do this forever.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Malin, we're bringing in Malin. Hello.
Hi. Hi. Thank you for having me, Raven. I'm really excited.
Of course, no problem at all. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. So I'm currently at the University of Puerto Rico working on my doctorate. I'm in my second year. I am a plant pathologist / plant geneticist. My training is in plant genetics. Currently, I'm looking at the distribution of costly diseases on the island of Puerto Rico and attempting to genetically characterize the races as well as the different types that are here in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
With different diseases. So it's one that affects the leaves, one that affects the fruit.
Wow. You guys are all doing like really amazing work. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna get started on our show. Are you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So hold on one second. You guys might want to check the private chat here for STEMbassy. Okay. So going forward, it's time for hot topics. And tonight, since it's International Women's Day, and since we all happen to be women, I definitely wanted to talk about some of our experiences just as women in STEM, and the good, the bad, the ugly, as they like to say. And so is there anything that kind of sticks out about your experience as a woman in STEM that you kind of want to talk about tonight, that you're feeling fired up about?
I'm always fired up about women's issues, and so I definitely feel that, especially on today. I think the one thing that I can resonate with, and I'd love to hear all of y'all's perspective, is that being a woman in STEM is feeling constantly like you have to reduce your womanness and like your femininity to fit in. And I think that not only goes into like your femininity, but also like your culture and your cultural background. So that'd be something that I'd love to get y'all's perspective on for sure.
Yeah. I definitely get that a lot. But my experience is a little weird because I've worked in environments where it's been mostly women. So I'm not sure how much I can say to that because there have been very few times where I've worked in all male environments or majority male environments. But maybe somebody else can attest to that.
I definitely attest to that.
Yeah. So, like, what's your experience?
So, one of the reasons why I went into education was because some of my frustrations in the industry overwhelmed me. Coming out of my graduate studies in biology, I worked at a very prominent lab, trying to complete my master's in biology, and in that lab, it was a place that I thought I was going to find finally the mecca of respect. Here I am, no more riffraff. I can finally be up there, in the upper echelon with all these brilliant people, and they must be so intelligent. And then I go into the office and the lab, and I find myself often pushed to the side, mainly because I was new and I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought they would teach me. I thought that they would be compassionate, and essentially it was more of a competition. And I found myself having to teach myself and to be my own mentor. And it made me feel disenfranchised. I didn't know what it was at first. I thought to myself, well, it can't be because I'm a woman and Latina and Black. They're too smart for that, right? They're not there too. For goodness sakes, it can't be here too. So for sure, I can definitely relate.
Yeah. Wow. So what about you, Malin? I know you said you had some experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. My first laboratory where I got my first science experience in was a plant genetics lab that was majority men. It was 2 females. It was me, myself, and another Mexican female. So we were both minorities on top of that. And as you know, they kind of add up. The more minority you are, it just seems to add up. And exactly what you said, Cami, your femininity it has to be muted in the science field. And it's nice to see women like you guys that are stepping out and not letting anybody mute us and not letting anybody tell us that we can't be women. We should be able to come in with makeup, have nice hair, and not be taking any less serious than anybody else. This is not a reflection of our intelligence. And sometimes they attempt to over-explain things to us because they think that we don't understand, or they even assume that we aren't on top of our stuff either. But we are. We're actually even more on top of our stuff than they are half the time. But there's also a level of humility that I feel like we have to put forth, I feel like sometimes I have to step back and be humble just because I am a woman and because I'm brand new into the PhD program. You feel like you have to step back and kind of hide your intelligence. But lately I've been letting it out a little bit more to show them that I am on top of my stuff and I am just as intelligent as they are.
I think that's a big part. Like what you guys said is major. And I find this really when you're doing anything to hold yourself back because you're afraid of making other people uncomfortable, you really have to be aware that the only real reason why you're not being yourself is because you're afraid of making other people uncomfortable because of their reaction. But once you get past that, the world is really yours, because it's going to be all about you. It's not going to be whatever you do is not going to be determined by what anybody else thinks. And then it's like, well, who's going to stop me?
Right.
It's definitely so freeing when you get to the point that you're like, I'm just not going to care about y'all a little bit. Or less so.
Yeah, let's address this question on the screen. You guys see it down there? So Amanda said, sometimes I questioned if I'm allowed to wear my eyeliner with a wing because I had faculty meetings. Isn't that interesting? Can you guys empathize with that?
So just a little shout out. So I definitely know Amanda because I saw her as an undergraduate in my institution. She did some research over with us. And I'm so grateful that she's here just asking questions because I feel like the best thing that I could tell her and other women about eyeliner is now at this point, 4 years into my PhD, I'm like, how big can I make the wing while my eyelashes still come out above that? That's my biggest concern.
I love that.
With my current perspective, that's where I have found myself 4 years into the PhD, but I'd love to hear what y'all think.
For me, if it's a faculty meeting, if you want to slay, go ahead and do your thing. But if we're talking about having to actually do the science and we have to actually look through the microscope and then we have to actually do things, I might push back a little bit because I wear all of the above, and I might push back just because of practicality. But other than that, if you're going to the meeting, you want to slay, yeah, do it.
Yeah. I think the only place where I draw the line is I wouldn't come in booty jeans in short shorts either. But But as far as makeup is concerned, actually, same thing with you, Cami. How you said that in your fourth year was when you had the confidence to wear really, really accentuated wing liner. I've always loved booties with heels, little heels, you know, not too big. But I don't really get back problems. I can wear them all day. They don't hurt my feet. But I thought that if I wore them, people wouldn't take me seriously. And you know, 2 years into my PhD, I said, you know what? I'm gonna start wearing my booties with my heel. And I feel like it makes me feel like more of a powerhouse. I'm more on top of my to-do list. I feel like I can put my shoulders back and I'm on top of everything. I feel a lot more productive, actually. It's crazy. If that sounds. Yeah.
I feel the same. Yeah. And like you kind of go around with this attitude of like, I wish you would question me. You know? I wish you would.
Like, make commentary, please. I will tell you what brand I use.
Okay.
Yeah, I think to your point, Sienna, that my nails are like a little bit long. They're long. I mean, I don't know. Long is like to the eye of the beholder, you know. And recently, my supervisor asked me if it was like more difficult for me to type with my nails, and I think that goes into like the functionality of it. Like, is it like preventing you from doing your work? And I'm happy that he asked it as a question, and he's kind of awkward and I just appreciate him for who he is. But I was like, no, it doesn't prevent me. And like, if you just like, it's like anything else, like, you get used to it. It's like, does being in heels prevent you from walking? No. Like, I think it's more of a conversation of like, are we both like being ourselves and like really finding joy in the things that we find joy in, and then making our stuff work. Like they're not mutually exclusive, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think we as science communicators, we really owe it to the next generation to just keep it real about our experiences and not make it so that we're living in a way that like we're not even comfortable with, you know, because the truth is when they get older, we're going to be the people in the lab. We're going to be, you know, the people who are going to be their bosses. And if we carry that tradition of, no, you can't like wear long nails, you can't wear eyeliner, that kind of stigma, that trauma, or that negativity is just going to keep perpetuating. So I guess like we really are doing a good job at breaking the cycle, I guess, of like hyper masculinity in science. Is that like too big of a statement? I think that's what we're doing, right?
No, I think that's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
In small steps and big ones, all as a group, right? Small individuals, but we're all doing it together.
Yeah. Yay.
Yes. I'm like,
so okay, I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, if you guys are watching, I know we have like 9 people watching right now. We had like quite a bit of people come in and out. But if you have any questions, make sure you're involved in the comments. Like we love talking to you all who are watching. Even if you have questions that are not related to what we're talking about, just go ahead and throw it in the chat. And we'll just address it there. Here we go. Here's a question. As long as, well, it's a comment. As long as it doesn't impede you from doing your work, who cares? Exactly. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
I think also it makes it so like you have a little bit of a pep in your step, and like you're like, oh, like I'm being like my full self, and I'm happy about my eyeliner, and like, you know, it almost like makes you do better work. Like I would love to see a study on that. like I bet it does really like help you if that's like how you feel comfortable and how you like want to express yourself.
I would gladly do a study on that. I know what kind of work. Well, I don't know if you guys know what kind of things I study, but like those are the kinds of things that I do like to study because I'm really interested in STEM culture in the workforce. So yeah, I'll put that on my list of things down the line to look into, and I'll reach back out to you guys when it's time.
My alter ego is like a social scientist. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all do the most important work almost in my perspective.
Yeah.
Like just because it's like we have such a hard time understanding ourselves as like people. Like it's almost easier to understand like plants, and it's easier to understand like materials, and but like people who work with people and like to try to understand people, I'm like, damn, we're all sorts of complicated.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I can definitely relate to that. Finding comfort in science principles and things that make sense. They follow laws and theory, and then there's dealing with people, which we are people, but dealing with people and trying to understand why is that the way it is? Why is that a norm? Who said that was appropriate? Who said that that was not allowed? And who's propagating these norms?
Ideas, right?
Really great point. So what is your favorite part about, I guess, what you do as a scientist?
I think eliminating those stereotypes. Go ahead, Sienna, please. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
I think it is eliminating those stereotypes, and I think my favorite part is that at one point I did think it was unattainable, that I was never going to be able to be in school for, more than 6 years, that I didn't have the ability, the mind to do it. And here I am doing it. And not only that, but I'm not fitting a stereotype. We're not what everybody looks at as a scientist. And it makes me feel good that, like you said, our future generations are going to be able to see something different and feel like no matter what I look like, I can do anything that I want. Besides the good science, right? It's pretty fun to go out there and produce data and be able to code to get the stats and then see your paper published in a journal and to reach that success in science. But aside from that, it is like a very social statement. You don't have to be a specific way to be something in the future.
I totally agree with what I feel exactly the same. Like I wouldn't even. Like it's one thing. I feel like one of the big reasons why I worked in corporate as a corporate scientist, and I was doing big research and all of that great stuff. But the reason why I went for my PhD in a social science was because I really wanted to understand people's thought processes in STEM culture and how to really make effective changes and how to give back. Because it's one thing to do science, but then it's like, if you really want to change science, that's a whole other thing. We can be in a lab, we can make discoveries, publish articles all day back and forth. And we all know we're smart. But if we want to make changes in the way that all those things are done and have a better culture so we can do more things, then we have to look at it from a different angle. So, Malin, you made a really good point. If I feel like the best scientists are able to understand all parts of being a scientist, including those two, the social part and then the technical part.
Yeah. So for me, with me leaving Hawaii when I was 6, and speaking Hawaiian pidgin. My mother was from Panama, so she spoke her form of English. So I finally went to Panama and learned a different kind of English, then came to the United States and learned Texas English. And because of that, I struggled in all my core classes as an English speaker, but was exposed to different discourses in English. And so when I finally got to college and then finally graduate school, that persisted. And I feel that I continually got somewhat judged for it, thinking, well, you speak English all your life, true, but there's different discourses that you're exposed to as a person who's multicultural. And so when I finally got into education, I ran into so many students with the same situation. They are I would say, as far as learning is concerned, they're misdiagnosed, and you're thinking, oh, well, they're not from another country, they should know English. But if you're from a different discourse, if you're learning English from people who speak in a specific way, and then you're moving a lot, you could definitely exhibit the same situation as an EL student. and which makes science, reading it and dealing with it, more difficult, and math becoming something that you gravitate to. So I began to develop a different way of teaching where I'm using math to get through my students rather than pushing back on the math as if it's making it more rigorous. I think taking math away from the science actually makes science rigorous, because now you're just taking my word for it. You know if it's true or not. If I can show you the math, whether you speak my language or not, you know what I'm saying. So that's my passion and why I love teaching so much, because I have that flavor and I see that it works, and I like teaching other teachers how to do it as well.
Yes.
That is amazing. I just have to say that I definitely experienced that. Like, I got to the US when I was 8 and I didn't speak English. So I was like in all ESOL classes, but then I was really doing really well in math and they like couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I promise that I'm like capable. And it was this thing that I struggled with, like even like doing the GREs, like I did so bad in the like reading comprehension of the GREs, and I've been here for most of my life. And not like so bad, like I obviously got into graduate school, but it was just something that I was like never quite comfortable with. And I grew up in Miami where like people like also have a different dialect and we speak a lot of Spanglish. And I can definitely relate to that, Sienna. So it makes me like, it warms my heart that there's somebody out there actually like doing something for these kids that feel that way.
Oh,
absolutely.
My heart is warm too.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
That is super, super awesome. So currently at the University of Puerto Rico, we have Turkish professors, Chinese, Colombian, anything you could think of, British, Italian, and yes, we actually, it's a whole, I didn't expect it. I expected to come here and it was all Puerto Ricans because I come from California. I was born here, raised in Orlando. I got my bachelor's in California, and then I came out here again because I had my son, and I needed somebody to take care of him while I studied. And so my family's here, and I feel that it's I'm one of the few that speak English in terms of like, journal, club presentations in the classroom. But when it comes to conferences in Puerto Rico, all in English. If we have professors from other parts of the world, they always push English, even though a lot of the students do struggle a little bit. But the beauty of it here is that no one's discounted. No one is looked at any less because they don't speak English or really good English. So I feel like, I didn't expect to have such a diverse set of professors when I came out here, or even to have English pushed. I thought we were going to be speaking all Spanish. But it turns out that you're accepted here if you're willing to produce good science and you show up. It's a beautiful place, I think.
I have a story too, that quick one, if you guys are interested.
What?
Yeah, so totally speaking to what you're talking about. I recently was in a meeting and we were trying to get together a curriculum based on a fish pond. And it was supposed to be a unit. And finally someone said, what are we going to do to make sure these students have acquired the knowledge? How do we measure acquisition? And so they developed oh my gosh, I hope I don't mess this up, an energy dynamic diagram. And they kept on saying this, and they even gave it an acronym, EDD. I know, right? And I was like, they kept on saying it. And I just got so frustrated because these are the same things that put boundaries on students. I said, are you talking about a food web? And there was like, yeah, but this has this one component that changes it into an EDD, and I wanted to make it clear that it's important that we stop inserting these words, that are unnecessary. Science is already difficult on its own, so yeah, it was funny. Everyone like, yes, thank you for saying the truth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. And then these words add more complication to it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I totally. Hold on. Are you muted? I'm just like trying to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, I've been muting to keep them because they are just
okay. Sorry, because I'm like, I thought I just heard her talk, but okay, got it. Yeah, so this is actually something that I've studied a lot in my program. And Sienna, you've probably read some of the same things that I've read about like how to teach students how to teach science to students who aren't um, a part of the Western culture, if you're teaching from the Western culture, and how to teach students science if if English isn't their first language. And that was one of the things that is highlighted in the literature a lot, is just let the kids just do their thing. You know, if they use words that maybe aren't appropriate or the widely accepted terms, that's okay. Just let it slide, because what's most important is that they just get the general concept. And it also can impact their self-esteem if during the learning process you're just like, no, like that's not the word, use this instead. And then every time they come up with a new idea, they're like second guessing themselves, like, oh my God, you know, I want to say this, but I don't know if it's the right word. So I'm just not really going to say it at all. I'm just going to stay quiet. And that's not a good way to like facilitate a good classroom environment or learning environment. And like I know we all speak Spanish and we had this conversation privately, but I was in a Spanish immersion school when I was younger. So I don't think Spanish is like my first language. I want to call it like my first and a half. Because at my elementary school education was English and Spanish at the same time. And most of the time I wasn't in some of the grades I was in, I didn't speak English at all. So there are some gaps, like some basic math I do in Spanish in my head, like because when I learned addition and subtraction, they were teaching us that in Spanish. Some basic like words like is, are, was, like I get those mixed up all the time. But little things like that. So I get it, and I definitely try to do the same things that you guys do. Just keeping the classroom flow smooth and making sure that these students still feel confident as scientists, even when they might not have the right words to say.
Right. And I honestly never see the reason why we can't use I should say, not to have another word, but layman's terms for science.
Yeah,
Totally. I agree.
I do it all the time. In fact, whenever I teach a college level biology course, I always begin the lesson just using layman's terms, and then I slowly introduce the scientific concepts. And that works way better than you just laying down straight vocab like in the beginning, because they just are like, a what? A fallopian? A what? I'm just like, okay, guys, just give me a second.
So I currently write my scientific papers in layman's terms, and then I go back and like edit them and put jargon in it because it's like the only way I can write it. Because I'm just like, oh, this is so dry. Let me just write it how I would like explain it to somebody and like tell the story, and then go back in and like use the citations and use all of the like jargon and the specific terms. So that's definitely a trick that I found that makes my science like better communicated, even if it's to a scientific journal.
That is awesome, Karen. I'm definitely taking that one from you. I love that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that period. Because half of the time when I struggle to write, I'm struggling about what are the right words to use. But if I just write stupid sentences like, I did this, then I did that, you know, and then go in and be like, I did a Western blot, and then I used this. That makes so much more sense.
Like, my results were fire.
Right.
How do I say that again?
All you haters wish you could get results like this.
I have tried.
That's a really good tip. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, anybody who's in the comments, take that advice and then report back, because I'm definitely going to. I have this question up here. Amanda, what school are you talking about? She said, what kind of school is that? I've never heard of a program like that. I'm trying to think back to what we talked about.
I think it was your school, Raven, the immersive like Spanish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I want to say when I was in first, maybe grade, kindergarten, early, like when I was just beginning to form a brain. I was put into a Spanish immersion school, and basically that school, the goal is to make bilingual students, which they did. And so my day was pretty much all Spanish. My teacher was Latina from Costa Rica, and she only spoke Spanish to us. So that was that. Our homework, Spanish. Everything, classwork, Spanish. The whole school, Spanish. So that's a Spanish immersion school. I don't know like if that's a thing anywhere else. I'm like gonna Google it really quick. I don't know.
Actually, here in Puerto Rico, they do something like that. It's actually exactly, I don't know what they call it, but they do half their day in Spanish, half their day in English. So it's something similar. Or they do one class in English and the class in Spanish, depending on the teacher.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what that was, Amanda. Thanks for your question.
So I have a friend in DR who's from DR that when she lived there, she went to a very similar school as well. Mm-hmm.
So did they do that to teach English in DR? Or was it to teach Spanish?
Yeah, it was to teach English in DR. So it was like kind of the opposite.
Wow.
The opposite, but the same, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Would you guys do that for your kids?
I think I would do it for my kids because I have like a white American fiance. So, and all of my family only speak Spanish. So I'm like, y'all need to be able to communicate with your grandma. So I definitely would consider that for sure.
I would do it too. Just like you, my fiance is also a white American. White American. I think that's so cute. Yeah, so my fiance is also a white American, and I want to be able to talk to my kids in Spanish. I want to be able to pass on that ability, I guess, if you will, culture, if you will. So yeah, and I think in our country we're becoming so diverse. It would really be a disservice to, I feel like, to my offspring if I didn't equip them with more than just English. You know, I could not imagine not knowing more than one language. And I know so many people who are either bilingual or not, and the people who only know one language are like, I can't imagine knowing two. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
It's been a struggle with my children. They're 16, 15, and 12 years old, and their father is Nigerian African American. So they're taking up 3 languages: English, their father's language, and mine. And so my daughter, who's wonderful, she said, "Mom, I speak Spanish fluently." And then she literally popped up an app, and it was like, "See, watch. Tell Mom I said I speak Spanish fluently." And then I just I give up, man. I give up.
Go ahead, girl.
But I do share the culture, the polleras, the Congo style polleras from Panama, and the folklore dances and things like that. They have that down, but the language, no, unfortunately.
That's wonderful, Sienna. Wow, super smart. My he's 3 and he's bilingual. His dad is African American, and then I'm Puerto Rican. I think I said that already, but he knows both Spanish and English. He reads and in English and in Spanish. I pretty much am in charge of the Spanish side, and then his dad is in charge of the English side. Even though his dad is quickly learning the language, we just got here 2 years ago, and he has an app. I mean, it's not a translation about it. It's more like so he learns and they do it together, and it's a really nice experience for them to interact through learning, you know, another language.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think honestly, it also helps me with like spelling words. I don't know if y'all can relate to this at all. Like if you just say a word in Spanish, it's way easier to spell.
I thought it was
I don't know if this is just
I
me.
thought it was just me. For real.
You just found it out. You can tell it.
Yes. So I'm like, I hope I can pass that on to my children for sure.
Give us more information. Like, for real. I really thought I was the only person that did that. I'm like, am I stupid? Like,
No, I'm like, this is the best way to spell words. I'm like, Spanish is all the letters are said, so you gotta spell it.
That's an excellent point. The IGHT used to always frustrate me. Like, what's the extra letters for? Why would you do that to us?
Yeah.
And Latin, like in anatomy and physiology, we have an upper hand in the pronunciation of all those crazy words.
boom. There you go.
Just all of it. And okay, and then to the culture part, I think in terms of an immersive school, I don't think they would provide the culture, because at the end of the day, most culture I think comes from like who you interact with, like the community that you grow up in. But I feel like the cultural aspect of being Latina, I think has also like, I don't know, maybe I'm like just like from where I've been, just being like really like, oh, I am a little bit more forward than say other potential cultures. Even in South America though, I think like there are different cultures within that, but I think just even having grown up in those cultures where you're like, I'm going to tell you how it is. That's it. Even as like mom to daughter in any sort of familial situation. So I think that's even helped me in science for sure.
Good question.
I love it. It's question time. We have questions in the chat. So this one was the first one, and then I'll pull up the other one that I had up just like a few seconds ago. So Kwani Mommy 8709 said, did you all find it challenging to date and find a partner of quality? Does your partner have a STEM career as well? Who wants to go first? Sienna.
I'm gonna drink to this question.
Sienna. Okay, well, I guess I'll go. I'll just go ahead then, because you guys want to act like... Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, did I find it challenging to date and find a partner of quality? Okay. Yes and no. It's all about your mindset, I guess. And now since you guys are asking for dating advice, it's all about your mindset. Like, you can either make it a challenge to grow and learn about yourself and about other people and what you like and what you don't like, or you can make it a negative thing and make it about heartbreak, make it about failure, make it about losing something, right? So yes, dating around, getting involved with people and then it not working out and trying again takes a lot of energy, and it's not always pleasant, but as long as you have a good mindset and try not to feel like, you're spiraling into like hell, I guess, you'll be okay. And then as far as quality goes, every time you encounter somebody, make sure that you have standards and then just stick with your standards. And if it doesn't work out, reevaluate your standards and be like, okay, I need to set the bar higher. And keep it there. Don't you ever go like underneath your little bar. Keep the bar here and then just wait, okay? Just wait, and then you'll catch your partner. Just be yourself and they'll come along. And if you keep your standards, you'll be fine. Does your partner have a STEM career as well? Yes, mine does. He's a computer scientist, and he's my exact opposite. I don't really know. Has anybody seen Love is Blind?
I only saw Instagram stories of it, so I know what it's about.
Yeah. So everyone that not everyone, but a lot of people have been comparing me and my fiance to the Lauren and the Cameron guy. And I refused to accept that because I thought that they were just like, oh, it's a black girl and a white guy. You are just like them because you guys are also a black girl and a white guy. And I'm like, you guys suck. But what it turned out to be is that like those two characters on the show are actually a lot like us because we're exact opposites. The guy on the show is a computer scientist. The girl is like a content creator, super bubbly. He's super quiet and like doesn't like to talk to people. He's white, I'm black. I'm really vocal about black issues, black politics, women's issues, you know, social issues, and he's just like chilling. Yeah, I mean, you just find your partner and it'll be fine. You guys talk.
You guys love each other, right?
We're getting engaged. Well, we are engaged. We're getting married.
That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Congratulations!
Thanks.
Yay.
Yay. It doesn't feel real. Nah, it's weird.
Oh.
Are any of you guys married or engaged or in shenanigans with another half?
Yeah. So my big thing is ambition and the way you treat me. I mean, you can, you know, be a construction worker. It doesn't matter to me. You know, you can be dirt broke. It really doesn't matter. I think it's about moving forward every day and knowing that you have my back even when days that nobody else has my back. And I remember when I first chose this career, I felt like everybody was telling me I shouldn't do it. You know, it's going to take too long. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to be, you know, it's going to take a long time. But he was the only one that told me, you know, if you want to do it and you're determined and your mind is made up, then do it. And to this day, he still is my biggest supporter. And that's what I wanted. I wanted someone that even during the hard times when no one else was there for me, he's still there for me.
That is so important. And I think a lot of times when people have asked me for relationship advice, it really just came down to, do they support you, right? And that's kind of a fundamental thing. Trust, support, love. That's just like the core of what a relationship should have. And if that's not there, then you gotta go. Go ahead and just pick out the next person because I don't think that would work out. What about you, Cammie? You had to drink. You were drinking for a lot. You and Sienna.
No, well, I have been with my partner for a while, and he does not have a STEM career. We met in undergrad, and I definitely kind of echo all those statements. It's so important to like find somebody that supports you, that listens to you. I also am with you, Raven. We're like opposite people. Like he does not like talk to other people. Like very quiet, very just like I like my space. I like my social battery being full. And if I have more than one conversation, it starts to twinkle. But I think honestly, the best advice I can give you in terms of like the challenging part of it is just understanding that we're all people who want to give and receive love, and to understand love as like a verb rather than a noun, and to just act loving. And also understand that like we are always like changing and we're always like exploring in terms of not only as scientists, but as women and as people. And I think if you also realize that like you're going to change and your partner is going to change and you're always kind of in like sync in terms of what those changes are, it's like great, but also like evaluating like, did how that person change suck? And if they did, maybe like leave that situation. So I think in terms of like quality is a very qualitative aspect. It's about whether you like that quality now or whether you like it later and how you match together.
Yeah.
There was this one quote that I saw, and it was like, love isn't about loving 1,000 people. It's about loving 1,000 versions of the same person. And I'll never forget that. But I think that definitely relates to what you're saying.
Yeah.
That is so true.
Although I've been married for some time now, people for me are like puzzles that I enjoy figuring out. And I needed someone who was a constant puzzle. So this gives me something to figure out. As I approach, now that I'm 40, um, I I've changed in a way that I do need someone who allows me my world, so that I can do my world and come home and talk about it. And that person has to also have their world. And so in my relationship, in my marriage, he's not in the STEM field. Um, he's in a government field, and he definitely has to maintain his own world. My world is a lot more mundane than his. His is like real world big stuff, and mine's is like, well, such and such was naughty again today, you know. But I do enjoy my access to some of the things that he's able to share with me, and I enjoy also going to my place in my privacy. So that's where I am at. Also, needed someone who allowed me to focus on my children and develop them. Um, so I remember when I was younger, like a bunch of things I had on my list was so important. You're there for me. You pat me in the back. We celebrate. You always giving me presents. I had a bunch of stuff, and all that kind of like is kind of like meaningless at this point. I just need you to keep on paying these bills, being faithful to me, and making sure you can have some sort of conversation at the end of the day.
I'm like, that part.
I'm just over here getting my life, and that's the honest truth. Keep paying these bills and keep pushing. I love it. I love it.
I'm like, I'm getting advice here. I'm like, wait.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we have to provide for each other in multiple ways.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. I love all of the wonderful relationships. So,
okay, so moving on to the next question. We could talk about this all night, honestly.
Yeah.
There's some really good questions here. So I'm going to bring this on the screen. What made you ladies choose your areas of study, especially plant pathology? So that question is directed first to Malin. And then I guess we can all chip in.
Yeah, please. I think that as for all of us, I'm sure it was like this. Life just kind of guides you in certain directions. And so my original major was I wanted to be a dietitian. So I wanted to go and study food. And then I took my first microbiology class, and our final project was a food microbiology project. And we had to come up with something from scratch. And it just was such a, so I pretty much did the antimicrobial properties of cinnamon, garlic, and lemon, something pretty simple, but it was just so applicable. And that's what got me about the food sciences. But from food, so I attempted to submit to a couple summer research internships, but I wasn't looking to travel. I had just gotten out the military. I had just gotten back from Afghanistan. I still wasn't ready to travel, but I still wanted to move forward in my career. So I started to look for local summer research internships. I didn't find a research internship, but I definitely found a summer internship on a organic farm in Encinitas, California. And that was my introduction to agriculture and farming and all these beautiful things about food. And I'm also kind of I'm a very I'm gonna say this lightly, I'm a doomsday prepper. Not in the sense of like I'm gathering water and stuff in the storage, but I feel like if everything went down, what would be useful? Agriculture. So that's when I decided from food microbiology to switch to agronomy. My school didn't offer agronomy, so I did a bachelor's in biology with an emphasis in ecology. But here at the University of Puerto Rico, as you can see, I've been able to really dive deep into plant pathology and plant genetics, and deeper into plant genetics of an agriculture plant. Because back in California, I used to work with Arabidopsis. So not very agriculturally significant. So that's how I got here. I just kind of let life take me where I wanted to go. I didn't want to travel, which got me to the farm, and then the farm led me to feel like on top of my doomsday prepping feelings, my very minor ones, I decided, if this all went down, I think agriculture is something that's useful. And also I feel like it'll be very impactful for our society. How are we going to keep food production up with the growing population? That's what got me to this. And then what kills production more than anything? Plant disease. So that's kind of how I got here.
Wow.
I feel the same way. Like every now and then I think about like, oh, I should prep for doomsday. And like I'm so glad I'm not alone. And the first thing I think to buy are seeds. Honestly, like packs of seeds. They sell doomsday kits that have like 50 heirloom varieties of plants and vegetables and herbs and stuff. And like every now and then I'm like, I should buy one of those. Just I'm gonna buy one like right after this show.
I think I'm going to do.
So I'm glad now I don't feel as like paranoid. That's a really cool story, and you're so right. Like even as warfare is getting more sophisticated now, like we have technology where people can wipe out our electrical grid like that. I think it's called what is it called? An EM pulse? Oh my god. Electromagnetic. Yeah. So those are weapons that basically they cause electromagnetic disturbances, and they can be so powerful as to wipe out like the grid. So and it would take us a long time to come back from that because our electrical grid systems here in America suck. They need to be updated. A lot of people don't know that, but like we're really vulnerable. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Malin. Like I'm gonna come down to Puerto Rico and go to your house, okay? Like
So I'm gonna second that by saying that I just got like a home composter where I'm like putting it on my vegetables because I'm starting a vegetable garden. Because I'm like, I could not go to another farmer's market and pay $6.
I love it.
I'm not doing that, but
That's awesome.
is definitely just like another reason to do it and live off the land. So I really appreciate. And I might hit you up, Malin, and be like, my plants are dying.
I'm here for anything you need, Cammy.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. I think when you are in the field of STEM or science, you kind of know more in a way that what's coming, you know more about the data. So it may seem like we're like kind of like doomsday people, but it's just because we know what's going on. We know the chemistry that's occurring. We know what the distinctions are happening on a massive levels. So at the back of our school, we partnered with Corteva, and they are designing drought resistant seeds. And so our students are testing them at this moment. Even though I don't add doomsday ideas in the curriculum, I still see a lot of it in NGSS standards. So I think we're not the only ones who see what's coming. And this to be informed and ready to do the science.
That's I like that better. We have familiarity, so we know what's coming, and that's better than doomsday forever. Yeah. I like that, Sienna, very much.
So I think in terms of choosing areas of study, it goes back to even this conversation of like just trying to understand things a little bit more and trying to use that understanding to put some sort of like social impact. Because for me, I'm like, I wouldn't be where I am today without like my mom and without just people and like my community supporting me. And I just want to be able to do that for more people. So I study like this particular, it sounds very niche, like 3D printing to make cartilage, but osteoarthritis is the biggest cause of disability around the world and over the age of 65 for folks. So trying to be like, okay, I can make some sort of positive impact in this field was like the biggest call to action for me. Because I'm like, I know what's going on in terms of like the social issues that we have. So if I could potentially try to work to make healthcare a little bit more accessible, to make medical devices a little bit more accessible, especially from communities where I come from, both here and in Venezuela. So that was definitely like, for me, I'm like, what is super applicable and what is a way that I can like have a little bit of an impact?
Thank you. That's really important. So I'm going to answer this question really quickly, and then we're going to move on to our game. Everybody in the audience, hang tight. Okay, gonna play a game. Gonna have an opportunity to win a $5 Amazon gift card. Woo! Everybody, woo! Okay, yeah. So, really excited. But to answer your question, Chelsea, what made you ladies choose your areas of study, especially plant pathology? So my area of study, predominantly has been in molecular science, and I was just really interested in languages, and I felt like genetics. Once I took a genetics class, I felt like I was learning a new language, and I kind of realized, wow, our bodies kind of speak a whole different language that we don't really think about on a day-to-day basis. But genetics, nucleotides, base pairs, like DNA, RNA, those are languages that our body understands and uses to function. So I was just completely mystified by that. And I basically went full force on understanding genetics, understanding how atoms, molecules work, how cells communicate and speak to each other at the molecular level. So that's how I got into molecular science. And you can manipulate those languages to create medicines, to cure cancers, to cure diseases, and things like that. So it's a really powerful language, and one that a lot of people don't really look at as a language, but it is. It's our cellular language, genetics. So yeah. And going into the game, yay!
Wait, that is such a cool thing to say. I had never thought of that as a language. I'm like, it is a language.
Yeah, so like we can maybe like put that on our resumes. I speak ATCG sometimes. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so now we go into the game.
Yay!
Hey, okay. So we're going to play the same game that we've been playing past few STEMbassy lives. Next week we're going to introduce some new games. But until then, we're just working on getting settled, getting into the groove. It's a trivia game. And since it's International Women's Day, I really want to highlight some issues that women are facing today that we are still working against. So these questions aren't going to be very like uplifting. I'm sorry, it might kill your mood a little bit, but you know, when there's progress to be made, we have to look at the issues, and we just gotta address and keep it real what's going on in the world. So I'm gonna ask you to answer in the audience these questions related to women's issues, and then I want you, as the audience member, whoever gets the question correct, I want you to come up with a solution in the chat, because it's one thing to talk about a problem, it's another thing to talk about a solution. So I'm going to give you in the audience 20 seconds, and I have my timer here, and you guys will hear it go off. 20 seconds to answer this question. How many girls are out of school worldwide? And the timer goes now. So you have 20 seconds to tell me how many girls worldwide are not in school. In the chat, all of my viewers.
It's hard, but I know it's gonna surprise us. Damn.
Anybody? Usually. Okay, so we have winner, Malaki, again for the third time on STEMbassy Live. She has won the trivia. Amanda, you were a close second, but we see Malati's answer here first. 130 million girls are out of school worldwide. So Malathi, what is your solution to getting more girls in school? And in the meantime, we're actually going to do a second round of because I wanna talk about some more of these issues. And in the meantime, we're gonna get the answers. And actually, everybody in the chat, can you all put some solutions in there about how we can get more girls in school? The next question, I want to know how many countries is domestic in how many countries is domestic violence not considered a crime? I'm going to put 20 seconds on my timer, and your time starts now. In the chat, this is for all of the audience. I want to know in how many countries in the world is domestic violence not considered a crime?
Oh, these questions are intense.
I know. I told you guys it wasn't going to be like. I know.
I mean, honestly, countries out there is important for sure. Like even documentaries and shows that are really hard to watch is just important to just educate ourselves, even how hard it is.
So, the answer, Amanda, you got the answer correct. It's 20. There's 20 countries in our world where domestic violence is not considered a crime. So, as I said before, I want the audience members to go into the chat and start making solutions for this problem, because it's a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meantime, going back to the previous answers about 130 million girls not being in school, Malathi said we can educate parents, right? Educate the parents and the community in general about the benefits of educating girls. Yeah. So when girls go to school, they can earn more money, right? They can contribute to the workforce, and they have more opportunities to provide for themselves and the people around them and the people who might be depending on them now and in the future. So that's really important. And then going to the countries that don't have domestic violence crime laws, what do you guys think? We don't have anything in the chat yet, but how do you guys think that we can improve that for women?
I have a few ideas, but they're probably not great ideas. But I thought through trickery, to be honest. We can say, hey, you know those spaceships that you are trying to send out there to outer space? You're gonna need somebody to decorate them, right? You're gonna need somebody to cook, right? You're gonna need somebody to put, nice pictures, right? Well, we need to go to school for that, right? So let's go ahead and get that done. And then, of course, we know what the real mission is going to be. They're going to actually be building ships in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these countries are ran by complete and total just men. There's no women. So when you go to these particular types of countries, and they're in their culture, and you're trying to change a culture, sometimes you have to speak a little bit to their ideas in order to get the bigger idea through. And I know, obviously, as women, we are much more worth than putting pictures up on a spaceship. I know that, and decorating it. I know that. But I'm thinking about going to some of these places where the idea of a woman is so stuck that convincing them, oh, we're going to be engineering ships is absolutely out of the question.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Malathi said there needs to be international pressure. I can see that working for and against the cause in some cases, because it really depends on what country. America does too much in a lot of cases, and we're always up in people's business. So I think it needs to be a worldwide front, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I've had my own personal opinions about how much America gets involved in other people's stuff, and we just kind of need to worry about ourselves for a second. because we got some issues over here that need to be solved. But yeah, I think international pressure can definitely help. She said, especially from powerful first world countries. So what do you guys think of that?
Out here in Puerto Rico, there's a huge domestic violence way. I guess it's a push to try to get rid of it because I think in the Latin culture it's called machismo. I don't know what it's called in other countries. I mean, in other cultures, but I think it is almost always a cultural thing. And I think it's about education. It's almost always about education, I think. But here there are private organizations, whether or not linked to the government, that post advertisements. I mean, it's not much, but it is like, value women. There are even independent artists here. Actually, graffiti is a problem out here, and almost every building has a mural painted on it. Some of it is just graffiti that gets put on there, but a lot of it is like murals honoring women and attempting to get people to stop abusing women. And it's like, hey, actually Burger King has a campaign out here that's telling women, you're not aggressive, you're not too intense, you're actually passionate and emotional. Use different words to break the stereotypes, because it's such a big thing out here to stereotype women into being aggressive and too forceful. But that's not what we're being. We're just being ambitious, and we know what we want. And so I think that these public service announcement campaigns are what can help. But it's a small step, right? But I agree with Malafi that it's about education, 100%. I think that's about to not be radical, right? But still educate and get the word out there.
Yeah, and then I pulled up this comment from Amanda. She said, both. I think it's a pressure on policy and like the culture surrounding how the people in charge view women's roles in society.
Yeah. We can both be in the kitchen, men and women. It's about moving forward. And if moving forward means we got to eat in the process, then we both have to eat and we both have to cook.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I mostly think about is about why are women in these situations in the first place. And I think it has a lot to do with kind of how society views women, but also like the opportunities and resources that women have, because if women did have more access to education and more access to resources, then they would be more willing to leave those situations. And not just that, not just resources in terms of like monetary and physical resources, but also mental health resources. Like I think a lot of this time we put this stigma on like going to therapy and like talking to somebody. And I think we hold a lot of trauma, like generational as well as just like individual trauma, that makes it so we feel like we need to stay in these particular environments and we don't deserve like something else and we don't deserve to leave. So I think as women, we just need more access both to resources and mental health resources, and these resources that you can't quantify.
Yeah, I think domestic violence is definitely a symptom of various different social things going on in the world. I think it started off with the breakdown of the family unit, and then from there, where's the father, where's the brother? Because in my grandmother's village in Panama, you have to deal with the father or the brother or the whole family if you're going to hit someone, and you wish the police would arrest you. So it's that breakdown where in-home the inside home quarreling has now become something that became something that someone can get arrested for rather than rather than using restorative processes for. And arresting someone and putting them in jail does not solve the problem. Arresting a father and putting him in jail doesn't solve the problem. He needs help. He needs restorative justice. He needs to compensate. That does also include her leaving, of course, but you still need to readjust and restore the man who's out there still in society, who's probably going to get into another relationship and make more babies. And then women, for them to understand that this is not acceptable, even if the woman is the person who's also committing domestic violence, whoever it is, that is not acceptable, that empowering yourself with education and being firm in your standards is a grave necessity But then, of course, what ends up happening is that there's an economic issue there. If I do send my abuser to jail, who's going to help me with these bills? Who's going to help me with my kids? Who's going to be there when I need protection? Even though he hits me, he still protects me. So there's so many different things that needs to happen first before we even begin to dive deep into domestic violence.
Really good point. And so we're running over. So we're going to address this question and then kind of wrap up, because I know it's Sunday and we all have things to do tomorrow. And I want to make sure that we get out of here in a timely manner. And our conversation is so great. But we have to go. Lazarus said, I think it will, I'm guessing that'd be B. I think it will be through representation. Media should just show strong women accomplishing major things instead of just backing strong men or being beautiful. Wow. I love that point. That's something that's really important to me, is the representation of women in the media, especially women scientists. We're important in our own right, and it doesn't have to be anything that has to do with a man. And I'm by no means like a feminist. I just believe in equality and keeping it real, really. And that's all it is. And the reality is that we're all equal, and we can have success by ourselves. We can have success with the team. We can work with a diversity of people, and we don't, necessarily need to have success by a man or by anybody else. We're independent people. We do our own thing. We're all capable and intelligent, and that's how we should be represented. And he does make a good point. Like, a lot of times in movies and stuff, women are kind of the side, on the side, right? The assistant, or not as important, especially when it comes to making discoveries or doing, when major things happen. It's never really a woman that did it. It's like the woman was the helper or something, or she's the damsel in distress, or she's just the pretty object. I do notice that, and those things have been studied, and there's actually research that confirms those things. So maybe I'll try to post some of those research articles about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you guys think about his comment?
I think back to the original point, I think it's like, why can't you do it all? Like, why isn't media showing women that are focused on like accomplishing major things, but are also beautiful and are also backing a strong man who's doing his own thing? Like, I think media should also show like multi-dimensional women rather than kind of a trope. But I think media is best at showing that, which is just a trope of what we think of a stereotype or like a specific category should be. So I think like that's true, and we should also be able to do it all at the same time and not if we don't want to.
I agree, Tammy. Actually, Barbie, I believe, has started a new line of dolls that, include different shapes and sizes, different professions, and that is what needs to happen. If there's a product out there that most girls play with throughout their childhood, that's where we should target the change in order to send a message. And I 100% agree. Like, there has to be we need to just shift the culture so that our mindset shifts. And right now, the culture the culture sends us in a certain direction that has reflected in our behavior. Like, for instance, Tammy not feeling that she could feel comfortable with her winged eyeliner, me not feeling comfortable with my heeled boots. That's where the original mindset got us, right? The original Barbie got us. And now there are these changes that hopefully can change our mindset in a different direction.
That's a really good point that I really didn't ever think about. You're so right. That is what we've been pushing to these young women with these stereotypes and these toys and the examples, the representations that we've been given. I felt the same way, Amanda. Do you guys see Amanda's comment? So she said, "Oh my God, yes, I always wanted a brown Barbie when I was growing up, but it was always like the Barbie's best friend. Doll, that's so true, right? Like even though the Barbie looked like us, she had brown skin, you know, she was cute. It didn't feel as cool because they didn't make her seem as important. It was like, you know, Barbie's really the head honcho here. And then they didn't really make the other girls seem as important, but they were. Did you guys ever feel that way?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't think the features was as thought through as the features that they did with Barbie, the other Barbie.
Noticed that too.
The clothes was like stuff that, like, man, if I was to make a Latino Barbie or African Latino Barbie, she wouldn't wear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I then played with the Bratz dolls, which was like the next, and I think they wanted to like provide a little bit more representation, and in a way it kind of did, but it also was like a caricature of it in a way.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I guess, but I don't know. I guess I felt some type of way about it representing, but also being like over exemplified, like their heads were huge and their lips were huge, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, I did not like those.
I was like,
yeah, and who knows if that's led to this plastic surgery movement that we're shifting into, where there's no telling what is yours and what's not. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but you know, though you're right, the Bratz doll had very accentuated lips. They had these magnificent huge eyes. Super drastic features that honestly are not realistic, unfortunately. I would love to have those eyes, right, and have those lips, but it's not realistic.
Yeah, I'm just like, hold on a second. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what these girls look like now, for real.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Look at this.
Oh, wow.
I mean, no, but she's beautiful, but like, you know.
No, but that's what we grew up thinking was beautiful. Like, we've just been like, I think our minds and our brains are so little that they just see that and you're like, okay, I guess this is it.
The thing is, when I was younger, I thought that those were like kind of ridiculous looking, but now it's like, you know, that's what women on Instagram look like. Look at this.
I mean, more abs.
Actually.
Oh my god. So yeah, it's really interesting. And then we have Miss Yvette here. Women, I recognize this last name. Women need to succeed and do things by their own inspiration. I support you 100%. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, and that's like a perfect note to leave off on, because we definitely ran over on time. But yeah, we appreciate your support, Miss Yvette.
Yeah.
We're definitely inspired by all of the support that you guys have been showing in the comments, and thank you for your suggestions for how we can improve lives for women and girls everywhere. It was a really productive conversation, and again, today is International Women's Day. This is Women's History Month, March, and today, March 8th, is International Women's Day. So that's the reason why we're having these conversations about women today, and we will continue these conversations throughout the month. Does anybody have anything at all that they want to talk about before we start to sign off and say our goodbyes?
I just want to thank you, Raven, for having us and hosting this. This has been a wonderful time. So thank you, Raven.
Of course. It is not a problem at all. Thank you all for having giving us the time to be on the show. And I know that it's Sunday night and everybody's probably doing stuff, whether you're going to school, working tomorrow. I appreciate your time and your perspective and your positive energy. And yeah, I appreciate everything that you guys are doing in science communication, and keep up the great work representing women in science. Yay!
Yay! Thank you for having us, Raven. And I this is the first step. This is what we're talking about education. We need to put it out there, voice it, make sure people know and get it out there. And I love my mom and my family and my husband, and thank you for so much for having us. Thank you.
Of
Yes.
course.
I completely agree. This is all about identity, right? And how
Yeah.
we perceive ourselves as women, even when we're coming up. And regarding that 130 million girls not going to school, that's not just external to them. That's something internal to them. They need to believe and have that self-efficacy that they can do it. So if it starts off with a Barbie, then it starts off with a Barbie, and then graduate to, hey, now you're engineering this and you're doing this science. That's whatever we want to do to get there is what we got to do. And things like what you do, Raven, is exactly what we need in our children right now. Being yourself, being beautiful, and being smart all at one time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I really, with everything that I do, I kind of just aim to be the person that I wish I could have been as a child, or somebody that I wish I could have seen. Because I know, like, I was alone. I know that there's probably millions of other kids who felt the same way that I felt. So thank you. That means a lot. I don't really, I don't have a playbook or anything. I just kind of do what feels right. And this feels great. I love being in the room with you guys, in the STEMbassy with you guys. And it's always nothing but good vibes here. I'm really lucky to have had such wonderful guests who always bring great conversation to the table. And so if there's anybody in the audience who would like to be on the STEMbassy, you can email me. I'm putting my email address actually in the comments, raven@signraven.com. And actually, let me just throw it up here on the screen to appear on the STEMbassy. Email me.
Thank you. And Cami and Sienna, you guys are amazing. Raven, what you're doing is it's going to change the world. I know it. Thank you.
Yes.
Let's speak it into existence. It's all about positive impacts. So I appreciate you guys are going to change the world as well in your own special ways. So let's just keep up the good work.
Yes. Thank you. Both of you, Sienna and Maylin, I'm so happy to have met you both through here. So thank you for creating the community as well, because it's just wonderful to be in community with y'all.
Oh.
And anytime you guys, if you would like to reappear in the STEMbassy, like, you know where to contact me. The same way that you signed up for this date, you could sign up for any date in the calendar year. So yeah, like, just go ahead. If you feel like you want to talk some more, we can always talk. You're more than welcome to come back and hang out. So,
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. I'm gonna sign off. I'm gonna end the live.
Bye, everyone.
Next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every Sunday, STEMbassy Live. Okay. Bye.
Bye.